Hi everybody, welcome back to DayZ, and in this video I wanted to talk about bleeds and bleeding and wounds and how you avoid getting cut and bleeding, and then how do you treat yourself to stop bleeding and what complications can happen as well when it comes to bleeding. Now probably the most important thing as a beginner you should understand is that wearing gloves will stop you from bleeding when you do things like sliding down ladders, or if you go to some bushes and you want to cut them up into sticks. You've got to be wearing gloves. Shoes as well. If you run around in bare feet, you're going to get cuts on your shoes, but also if your shoes get ruined. So it's always a good idea to keep spare shoes in your backpack so you can quickly change them, or at least have some spare rags so you can make the improvised shoes. So they're two important things. Now the next thing is, what about when you've started bleeding? So you can start bleeding for a number of reasons. As I say, you could slide down a ladder. You could your shoes could be ruined. You could be attacked by zombies. You could be shot. All these things could start you bleeding. And the thing to remember in DayZ now is that if you treat a wound with a product that isn't disinfected, whether that be a bandage or a rag, there's a chance that you'll then get blood infection, so septicemia basically, and that will then take effect after a while, and it's very difficult to get rid of once it sets in. Also, if you are cut and the wound heals itself by itself, which it can do, especially if you're attacked by zombies, there's also a chance there that you'll end up with blood infection and become ill. So the first thing to remember is that with your bandages you can treat yourself with, what you're looking for is, if you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see it say bandage pristine disinfected. So that means that if I treat myself with this, I shouldn't get ill. However, if we put those to one side and we pick up these rags, you'll see these rags don't say disinfected on them. So although they would stop me from bleeding, and I could stop myself bleeding, the chances are I might well get blood poisoning from them. So what you need to make sure you do is, when you have things like that, you need to disinfect them. And we can disinfect the rags with disinfectant spray, alcoholic tincture, and iodine tincture. So as you see, I've got the rags in my hand, so if I just look at the disinfectant spray, it says disinfect to hold. If I just look at the iodine tincture, it says disinfect hold. Look at the alcoholic tincture. So these things are incredibly important to find, and if you do find them, hang on to them, and then make sure you treat your rags. If we look at the rag now, disinfected, so that's now safe to use. So you'd want to make sure that rag there that I've got there, I really want that to be on my quick bar, or on a console. You'd want that to be on your radial menu, so that if you're using rags to treat your wounds, you don't treat yourself with an unsterile rag. Now also, I think bandages can become disinfected, well, can become non-sterile as well, so watch out for that. I'm not quite sure, so yeah, they might not be able to. So for example, in order to make rags, you have to take your knife, don't you? I just threw it on the floor, and then you can cut up things. So let's cut up this dress. There we go. And then on the floor we've got these rags, which aren't disinfected. So again, we need to use the alcoholic tincture to disinfect them, and then they're usable. The other thing as well that you can use to fix wounds, which I don't think I've got here, let's see, is sewing kits. So if we take this sewing kit, let's get rid of those rags. Let's pick up the sewing kit. What you see there is we have an option to disinfect the sewing kit as well. So just like Rambo in First Blood Part 2, you can sew your wounds closed with a sewing kit. Now, what happens then if you use a non-sterile rag or a non-sterile bandage or a sewing kit that is non-sterile and treat yourself, stop yourself bleeding? Or let's say you get into a fight with some zombies, or you've been shot, or you've got bit by a wolf or something, and the bleed heals itself. What happens then is, well, you could well develop blood poisoning. Now, if you start bleeding, what you can do is you can treat your wound with one of these products as well. So what I'm going to try and do now is I'm going to try and simulate that. So what we'll do, let's just drop that there. These are non-sterile rags. So I'm just going to go into my admin program, and we're going to do a bite. There we go. So I'm bleeding now. So now what we can do now is we can treat the wound. So I'm going to treat the wound like so. Right. Okay. So we treated the wound. Let's get rid of those. And now what we can do, let's see if we take that. Now what would happen now is that if we then developed blood poisoning, we would get the option with the alcoholic tincture, or the iodine tincture, or the disinfectant spray to treat our wound. Now, if you do this early enough, that will hopefully stop the septicemia, stop the blood infection. If you don't, though, when the blood infection takes hold, at that point you will die. Your body, as far as I'm aware, I've never been able to escape it. The only way to treat it is with tetracycline pills. Now, tetracycline pills are antibiotics. They are very, very powerful indeed. Here we go. There's tetracycline pills. And you'll find these in health clinics, hospitals, places like that. And these, when you eat them, they will then hopefully, I think you have to use 2 over a period of time, will then heal your blood poisoning, heal your septicemia. So there we go. So when it comes to bleeding in DayZ, you need to be very, very, very careful. Always be aware. Wear your gloves, wear your shoes, keep spare shoes ready, or rags, so that you can make some improvised shoes, or even improvised gloves as well. Make sure that any bandages you have and any rags you have that you're going to use as bandage are disinfected with things like the alcohol, the disinfectant spray, or the iodine tincture. And then really, if you want your character to survive a long time on a long run, you're going to have to find some tetracycline, because you're probably going to end up accidentally, the classic one is you get into a fight with a zombie, you get a small bleed, that bleed heals itself before you notice, and then you develop blood poisoning. Okay, so hopefully you found this video useful. If I've missed anything out, which I probably have, just put it in the comment section down below, and of course I'll see you again soon.